Man, great stuff. Great stuff. Well done, Eddie. Well done.
Right. Bravo. Thank you. I want to thank Jesus and my mom and the Academy. Okay,
The
thanks.
Academy. Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of 2 Feet Deep. We want to thank Silverman Sound for producing all of the royalty-free music that you hear in today's episode. If you're interested in experiencing some royalty-free music for yourself, head on over to silvermansound.com. We hope you enjoy today's episode. All right, welcome in everybody to another episode of 2 Feet Deep. I'm here with my best buddy, Eddie Bromley. I'm Derek Markgraf, and we're glad you guys are listening with us today. Eddie, give us a shout out and tell us hello.
All right, I'm rolling, man. I'm rolling and looking out the window and seeing a lot of nice rain. It looks great.
Yes. A beautiful day in paradise. It's actually been pretty nasty here all week, and it doesn't look to get any better till maybe the end of the week. So
I'm going to have grass that's 10 feet tall by the time it's time to mow again. So
I haven't even got one mow in. I got on my mower last week and the battery was dead, and I was like, so frustrating. So I'm going to have to go see if I need a new battery or what's going on with that. So I hadn't even got one mow in. So I feel you there. My grass is going to be up to my knees.
Yay.
Well, let's jump in this morning. As always, we start off with a little entertainment exegesis. And today I'm going to have some fun for us, all right? We're going to go back to the 1980s. I've posted a video on YouTube where they have children of today, and I say children, I think they're more like teens actually. Did you watch the video?
Yeah, them playing the retro games.
Yeah. So yeah, they're playing. They've given them an NES, and it's kind of funny because some of them don't even understand how the cartridges fit in the system at first, or else they'll put them in, but they won't push it down like you're supposed to. And it's just kind of funny as someone who grew up on those games to watch kids nowadays, that have never seen one, try to make it function, but also on top of that, play some of the games. And I think that they played Mario, of course, because it's such a classic. They played Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, Double Dragon, Mega Man, and Ghosts and Goblins. I'm going to be honest, I was disappointed that they didn't play Castlevania or that they didn't play Contra, because those were two of my favorites growing up, and two very difficult games, especially Contra if you don't put in the Konami code of the famous up, down, left, right, B, A, start. If you don't put that in and get your extra 30 men, I don't think it's even possible to beat the game. What were some of your favorites on the Nintendo system?
Oh man, I loved Mike Tyson Punch-Out! I spent a summer trying to get to Mike Tyson and beat him up, and my family were real big fans of boxing at the time, and so man, I just loved it. I loved all the characters. They were all really interesting, kind of cartoony like characters. So absolutely loved it. That was probably absolute my favorite. Of course, Mario. Everyone played Mario. I mean,
yeah, I can remember going over to friends' houses and there'd be 5 of us, and we'd just take turns, rolling through. Somebody would beat a level, and then we'd hand the controller off to the next guy, and he'd try to beat a level. And oh man, it's such a blast back then with the games. A lot of fun to watch this video. If you're someone who enjoys those older gaming systems, I still have mine. I actually brought it out, I would say a few years ago, and introduced my kids to all the games on it. And they actually enjoyed some of them, which was fun. One of the quotes in this video that I've posted, one of the guys at the end of it says, you may feel bad and sorry for your dad because he had to grow up on the NES. And so you may think to yourself, well, he's not going to be very good. He said, but what that means is he's better than you. And I thought it was funny because, so many of our games were, once you're dead, you're back to the beginning. There were no saves a lot of times. if you died in the middle of a stage, you didn't respawn right there in the middle of the stage. You started all the way back at the beginning of the stage, no matter how far into the stage you were. They just they were incredibly difficult games. One of the girls at the beginning said, "Oh, I think this is going to be a lot easier because there's not as many buttons on the controller." Now, I will say there is two sides of that for me because I do play some of the Xbox games with my sons, and I just think that the amount of buttons and joysticks and everything, I'm like, give me a D-pad and two buttons. That's all I need. I can do everything you can do with a D-pad and two buttons. That's all I need. Oh man, it's fascinating to see how far gaming has come since then. Did you ever get a chance to introduce your sons to the NES system?
Boy, I don't even know what the answer to that is. We went through different iterations of video games. I remember at one point we were playing Lego Star Wars and Lego Indiana Jones. I remember doing uh, Wii Sports. I remember doing Guitar Hero and Rock Band. And, I think we did Mario at one time. But, it's funny. We've always enjoyed video games. We've always enjoyed both retro and new games. I think probably the retro ones I'm thinking about are like on family reunions. We go up to Gatlinburg, and there's always one of those arcade style machines that has all the different retro games on it.
Right,
And we end
right.
up playing Miss Pac-Man or Donkey Kong or Galaga or something. And so yes, I just don't know if we did it quite the same way you did. So
Sure, sure. Oh, and now that you said Donkey Kong, that was another one that they had played. I don't think that they were big fans of that. And that's funny because, I grew up at a skating rink, and one of the games that was at the skating rink all the time was Donkey Kong. And I played the heck out of some Donkey Kong. I loved it. It was one of my favorite games growing up. But the kids didn't seem to really enjoy that one too much. A lot of fun. This segment was just for the nostalgia and to
yeah, well,
remind
hey,
us.
oh, I call no, I have to interrupt you because man, you brought up the skating rink, and man, Derek's family skating rink was the center of teenage life in the 70s and 80s. And I remember when you guys first got Pac-Man. It was one of the first Pac-Man machines in the entire city, and there was a line of kids standing probably 20 deep waiting to play that game.
It's funny, yeah. Because the arcade that we had in there, and it wasn't very big. We couldn't hold but about 8 video games. But I can remember lines for Tron when
Yep.
Tron was a real big one where we'd stand in line to play. I can remember a lot of the older, or well, I guess probably young adults. When I was a kid, they were old, but they were probably younger adults enjoyed the Centipede game
Yes.
when it was there. So it's funny through the now that you said that about there being a line for Pac-Man, I can remember there being lines for some of the games there that were really popular during the time. But also back then we didn't have the home gaming system. The first one I had was an Atari. I think before it, there was in television. I can't remember what was before that. I'm sure there was something before that, but I mean, it wasn't very like everybody and their grandma's got one now. We have 3 Xboxes in our house. When I was a kid, we had one NES in our house, and it wasn't until I was a kid and I was the youngest of the group. So gaming was a different culture back then. It was literally you went to the arcade, or you went to the bowling alley, or you went to the roller rink, as they would call it, and that's where you played your video games. Man, yeah, the nostalgia of that is fun, and that's what I wanted us to visit. I
Yes.
wanted us to visit that nostalgia. I pulled up Ecclesiastes 7:10. It said, "Do not say, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this." And the reason I brought that up is because I think it's easy for us as an older generation, and of course, I heard my parents say this, and my parents' parents say this. Oh, things were just so much better back and then they give a year that was 30 years ago. Or the music was so much better in the 80s and the 70s. The games were so much better. Life was so much better then. There wasn't, nobody was doing anything wrong in the 50s. And I just thought, this Bible verse reminds us that each age has brought its things of merriment and joy, and each
yeah,
age has brought its problems, and evil has
yeah,
been here since the dawn of time and rears its face in a variety of different ways. Add to that because I mean, like why is it that we always feel like something was better 20 years ago?
yeah. And it's such a deceptive thing we play because we remember it better than it was, right? I mean, there are always good things. Like you said, every age has things that are glorious about it. Every age has things that are completely stupid and evil. I mean, like the 1950s, the cars, the music, the food, absolutely terrific. The dancing. On the other hand, the racism and misogyny, not so much.
Right, right.
The 80s, man, dude, breakdancing, new wave music, malls. On the other hand, cocaine. And,
Yeah. Cocaine and heroin, not so much,
yeah,
not so
not,
much.
not so
Um,
much.
and it's funny, you mentioned the cars of the 50s, and we love those. But also, I mean, I think that we're so thankful for the advancements we have in vehicles that we get today. You
Oh, yeah,
know,
well, I mean, the 50s cars look amazing, but they are death traps.
oh gosh, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we could sit here in nostalgia land forever, so I'm going to force us to move on, and we're going to head into what the what. Now, this is a great segment where we try our best to answer a question about the Bible or a Bible verse, the Bible as a whole, maybe specific concepts in the Bible. And I think we've had some good ones. This one is one that I see come up from time to time. I'm sure that you've heard it come up from time to time too. Is yeah, we have the Bible, but how do we know that the Bible's reliable? How do we know that's not just a bunch of stories? Who's fact checking the Bible? So that's my
Uh,
question to you, Eddie. Who's fact
oh,
checking the
that's
Bible?
Well, okay, so usually the way the Bible is said to be unreliable, usually somebody will say, well, have you ever played the telephone game? You line up 20 people and you give the person a message, the cat, drink milk as you play with the ball, and then the next person whispers it, and by the time it gets to the end of the line, it's just completely messed up. And often that analogy is used to say that, well, that's how the Bible was done. Just copied and then copied and copied. And how do we know that, it didn't just get transmitted with bazillions of errors? But the problem is that's not how the Bible was passed on. It was passed on in language families. And so groups of missionaries, probably the very first ones, would have just been very, very close regionally to the Hellenistic Jews. They would have needed to get the stories out of Aramaic into Greek, and so they would have started writing these stories and passing them along through missionaries into the Hellenistic culture. But Christianity was a missionary movement very quickly. So a group takes the Syriac translations, another group takes the Bible to into Ethiopia and into Ethiopian language, and then Coptic over in Egypt, and to the Cyrillic languages, and so it's passed around in family groups. And so when we discover something irregular about a text, maybe a word that we're not certain about, or we seem to have an error, we can compare family groups to family groups. So if we've got a problem in the Western Greek tradition, we can compare it to the Syriac tradition, we can compare it to the Coptic, we can compare it to the Cyrillic, we can compare it to the Aramaic, and we can usually tell where a transmission error happens in a family of texts. Additionally, if we were to lose all of those, and I'm not going to steal your thunder because I know you're going to talk about the numbers of those manuscripts in a few minutes, but if we were in the unlikely event to lose all of the manuscripts, we could probably reconstruct something like 86% of the Bible from the teachings of the mothers and fathers of the church. They cite the Bible so often that we could take the church fathers and reconstruct most of the New Testament from them. which means we've got multiple ways to fact check the Bible. And most of what we would consider transmission errors are so minor that they almost don't affect the text at all. I'll give you one that's real easy to understand. 1 John chapter 1. The writer says, we share our testimony about Jesus so that either your joy will be complete or our joy will be complete. Now, the reason we don't know for sure which one is because we have manuscripts that say both. Both make perfect sense. And in Greek, just like in English, the difference between the word your faith and our faith is only one letter's difference. And so that's an example of a place where we're not 100% sure if they're writing it to make your joy complete or our joy complete, because it makes sense either way, and it's a very easy transmission error to have happened.
Right, right. No, that makes great sense. And like you said, in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't affect the message. You know, so like you said about those about manuscripts and losing them. I was fascinated to learn, and I have posted a video where there is a man who I wish I would have remembered the name, but he's speaking about all of these details about why the Bible is so sufficient for what it says. And he compares it to a lot of other writings, which we take as 100% fact, writings from Caesar and Aristotle and Homer, and nobody questions that these were legitimate writings of the day. And the thing is like he starts to compare the number of manuscripts, and he's like, we have less than 10, or in some cases less than 5 of some writings from Caesar and Aristotle and Homer, where we have 6,000 manuscripts of the Bible, or portions of the Bible. 6,000. It's not even close. And not even, I mean, and not only do we have those 6,000 manuscripts, but like you said, from one to the next, there's almost no errors, or if they do, it's this letter difference that you're talking about, whether the word is your or our. They're so incredibly intact as far as what they say from one manuscript to the next. And then lastly, is a lot of people want to know the historical um, dates. Like, well, how long have we had those? You don't have any of the original New Testament. Well, no, we don't have any of the original New Testament, but what we do have are stuff that was written within decades of the time that it happened, where those other writings, and most other writings that we find, but with those of Caesar and Aristotle and Homer and the likes, those were found hundreds or even thousands of years later.
That's
Or copies that were hundreds and thousands of years later. Where those New Testament scripts that they're within decades. They're within the time that some people still would have been living to have witnessed it.
So
Witnessed this event of Christ.
yeah, so our oldest intact New Testament is the Codex Vaticanus. And immediately somebody's going to go, of course the Vatican, they are the ones who put it all together. Yeah, from about 320. Well, probably about 320. Well, we just recently discovered a Coptic version of the New Testament intact from around the same period. They had a different transmission line, again through those different families. So we have the same New Testament, but through a different family line over in the area of Egypt. And no, actually, this one's not Coptic. This one was Ethiopian. So through a different family line, we have another intact, complete New Testament from about the 4th century, and it is from a totally different family line, which means, again, we're able to see that this thing was transmitted faithfully through all these different family lines. And then he thought that the Vatican was controlling what was happening down in Ethiopia, doesn't understand what the ancient world was like. This thing had its own transmission history. And yet we get essentially the exact same thing. And
Yeah.
again, I
And
mean,
the,
just remarkable.
Yeah, and the vast distance of where those manuscripts are found. I
Yep,
mean, it doesn't make any sense that somehow there's a group of people that were going all over the entire world and doctoring literally thousands of manuscripts to make sure that they're all the same,
that's right.
and got all put back into the original places where we found them that were
Yes.
thousands of that were so far apart. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, no, there wouldn't have even been a human mechanism for doing something like that at the time. There's no way that the church in Rome, like you said, is overseeing monasteries and individual churches down in Ethiopia to make sure the texts are being transmitted exactly the same way. There's just no way for that to even happen. And what we see again, it's almost as if they had help.
Yeah, right, right, right. I put there's two links that I added here. I don't know if you watched both of them or not. One was that gentleman that I was telling you that was giving you the numbers as far as the manuscripts and everything. Both videos are not very long. The other one, though, it's talking about something that just recently happened, and they do a tie into the Bible because in the Bible in Genesis it talks about anybody that curses Israel will fall dead. So in this second video that I've posted, it is based off of a man. I didn't watch the video before today. No, that's a lie. I didn't watch the video before we started recording, and so I don't want to get it wrong. And I wish I'd taken a second to watch it. But the gist of it is, there's this man in the parliament. I believe he's in Turkey, and he stands up before parliament and he curses Israel, uh, and ends up being struck dead immediately at the podium, falls dead in front of the entire parliament. And the person who posted the video talks about the reference. Maybe it's Deuteronomy about the reference of anybody that stands up before and curses Israel will be struck dead. The point being that there's still activity of what the Bible says happening all amongst us, all around us. That one was just so bananas that I was like, "Oh, this is so interesting. I should post this in here." And I wanted to tie it in there real quick so that when you see the two videos, you understand that though they seem vastly different, they're actually talking about the very living word that we hold in our hands, the word that is very much alive still today, just like it was 2,000 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Um, and the scripture I brought for this was 2 Timothy 3:16-17. It says, "All scripture is God breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the servant of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work." I love that. A lot of power in that scripture reminding us that, all of it's there for its purpose, and all of it is there, and it's good for us to learn from, to correct ourselves, to help correct others, and to push us into being more who God wants us to be.
Awesome.
So let me take us into the His Name News Game. So this one comes from April 28th,
Oh,
1923, in an
all
issue
right.
of
Well, that's pretty
Time.
new. So, oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you're catching the theme of the show. This is from April 28, 1923. In Biloxi, Mississippi, the United States Marshal was ordered by a writ of sequestration to seize, this is quote unquote, seize and bring into court a 75-ton dead well, as to the ownership of which there was a legal contest. That's your whole story, my friend.
How much did the whale weigh?
75 tons, and was ordered by the court to be brought in because there was a question over the actual ownership. And so this was brought to legal court in April 28th, 1923.
You know what?
And I guess, they clearly needed the 75-ton well, which was dead, to, prove ownership. I have so many questions. I have so many questions.
My personality, and this, I don't know, this shows how much redemption I still need to undergo. But man, if I were that marshal, I'd have found any way possible to have gotten that thing and like put it on bench before the I would have found. I mean, I could see the judge and the jury and everybody showing up, not even being able to get in the courtroom because I figured out a way to get the whale.
To get the whale there. I don't
And then
even
when
understand.
and then when the judge asked me why I've ruined his court, I just hand him back his own order and say, I complied with your order,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah, this is the writ that you forced me into. So I went and got your 75-ton well. And last time I checked, uh, Mississippi doesn't have any bodies of water that hold
I
wells,
mean, it's on the
does
Gulf
it?
Coast. Do whales ever swim up to that thing? I mean, it's pretty shallow water.
I, I don't know. Just like I said, I have so many questions.
Wow, where to go with that? So, so I was reading Galatians today. And Galatians talks about how the Torah can describe what humanity redeemed looks like, but it actually can't produce it. And if we read the scriptures, so this isn't just a Jewish phenomenon, but if we read the scriptures and we somehow draw the conclusion that it's our job to fix this world, we have probably misunderstood what we're being asked to do. Humans have a vocation, right? And Christians and Jewish people have a we have a redemptive purpose in the world. But fixing the world and fixing ourselves is a God-sized um, job, and that's what Paul says, that the righteous will live by faith. But faith in what? Faith that they themselves can do it? Faith in positive thinking? No, faith. We will live. That translation can also be, we will live by His faithfulness. We trust in His ability to do what we cannot do. Moving a 75-ton
Oh,
whale is not, I mean, the impossibility of one marshal doing that. I guess he could have cut it up.
especially in 1928, where wasn't quite the same way in which we can construct the ability to do such a thing.
Yep. So the Torah and the rest of the Scripture can describe what a redeemed human race looks like, but it is a God-sized project, one that we fall helpless before
Mm.
God, and asking Him to do what only He can do.
Man, that's fantastic. Man, I honestly, I think one day there's going to be a day where one of us just goes, I got nothing. I got nothing. And I felt like today was going to be that day because I looked at this story and I was honestly like, man, I don't have any idea. So that's fantastic. And what a great reminder that there are some things that only God can do. And we have to let God
Yeah.
do those. Man, great stuff. Great stuff. Well done, Eddie. Well
Right.
done.
Bravo, thank you. I want to thank Jesus and my mom and the Academy. Okay, thanks.
The Academy. The big Academy that's
Yeah,
awarding us
I
for
guess that's you.
for the His Name News game. Yeah, I did. I was the one that said well
Thank you.
done. So
Thank you. I want to
you're
thank
welcome.
Derek.
Oh man, eschatological AI. Now this one's really cool. In case, I'm assuming you've picked up on our theme here, right?
Yeah, it's something about whales.
Yeah. So the theme here, obviously, is we've taken a dive into the past. Now it's hard to do with eschatological AI because AI is about the present and the future of what that looks like for us. But this one, it's actually something that we can use now to visit the past. What's going on here is I put a link to a news story that is about Alexa. And I know a lot of homes use Alexa, a lot of homes use Google Nest. I think there's a few products that are like it. But Alexa has added a skill to it to where you can ask questions to somebody from the past. So it's really fascinating. So First on the list is a skill called Character AI. Designed by the developers behind the Character AI website, this skill lets you chat with a range of different chatbots. You can talk to historical figures such as Socrates or Albert Einstein and engage in conversation about philosophy or physics or whatever that person's specialty would have been. Now, I haven't tried this yet, but apparently the author of this news article tried it. And later on in the article, he says, I opted to converse with Grace Hopper, who is the famous computer scientist and mathematician. I naturally asked her if it was true that the term bug was created after she discovered a moth in her logbook. But she set me straight by explaining that the story about the moth is a myth and the term bug was actually devised long before she found a real one. So I think it's kind of fascinating. When I first read this, I was like, man, this is really neat because, again, I haven't tried it, but I assume that the chatbot is most likely in the voice of that person that you're choosing to speak with. And I think that would be fascinating to ask them questions like you could sit down in a room with that person and, kind of visit what we know that they've said, what they know that they've done. And rather than just simply read about it, you feel like you're getting to engage with it.
Man, okay, so is Joe Walsh still alive?
Who?
Joe Walsh, the
Oh, from the
guitarist.
Eagles?
Yeah,
I think so.
I'd like to talk to virtual Joe Walsh about 18th century poetry.
I don't know that it works that way. I think you probably have to conversate with them about what their specialty is. So if Joe Walsh was on the chatbot, I think you could possibly talk to him about his guitar
Being drunk? Yeah, and being drunk probably.
and maybe some of his alcoholism. Which
Well, I guess it's the same thing. I was going to say, man, there was a wrestler called Butterbean. He
no,
was
he wasn't a
also
wrestler. He was a boxer.
boxer. I'd like to talk to Butterbean about the Napoleonic Wars. I just
Yeah, I think you are right on track. No, I think you've nailed exactly what the concept of this is. So I'm happy that you've thoroughly understood it.
I wonder if those options are even on there. I mean,
I'm happy that I've made it clear what this is about. I mean, I obviously painted a very good picture.
all right. Could I talk to Aristotle about basketball?
Yeah, I think that you could. No, but I do think it's fascinating, though. I mean, in all seriousness, is there someone that you would choose? Who would that person be?
Oh
That
yeah,
you'd have
for
be like,
sure. For me, for real, absolutely not joking anymore. It's not Confucius talking about gangster rap. For real, Leonardo da Vinci, and I'd love to talk to him about the creative endeavor because the man was one of the most creative people to ever live. Started a lot of projects, didn't always finish them, but was just brilliant. Just a polymath, knew something about nearly everything. A true Renaissance man. I would love to just talk to him about the process of creating.
mm, nice. For me, it would be Abraham Lincoln. I've always been really fascinated with the Civil War. This idea that things escalated to such a place that we decided we had to kill our own people, kill ourselves for a proper outcome. And I would love to sit down and talk to him about his philosophies and how he instituted, his efforts for that. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. That would be completely fascinating to me.
Wouldn't it be interesting to ask him, how do you make tough decisions like that when you
Mm,
know that even the best outcome is still going to be horrible, right?
right? Yeah, that's my like how did you go about deciding this was the best way to implement this philosophy, to end
Yeah.
this bloodshed. What compromises did he make? because it doesn't. We all have to make compromises to find ground enough to move forward. I don't know. I just would love to sit down and talk to him.
I've pulled up the Hello History. Is that the app?
It says that it is Character AI is what it's called.
Character AI.
And apparently there is a Character AI website.
Okay.
So I have not visited it and I have not tried it, but I'm completely fascinated by it.
Ooh, I see it. Oh man.
While you're looking that up, I'm going to read us 1 Corinthians 10, 6, and 11. And, as we think back to what I said about Ecclesiastes, always thinking something was better in the past and that we don't need to do that, that still doesn't mean that we can't learn from the past and that we still can't visit the past to understand better going forward in the future. And I think that this Corinthians passage kind of opens up that ideal to us. It says, these things happened as a warning to us, so that we would not crave evil things as they did, or worship idols as some of them did. As the scriptures say, the people celebrated with feasting and drinking, and they indulged in pagan revelry. And we must not engage in sexual immorality as some of them did, causing 23,000 of them to die in one day. Nor should we put Christ to the test as some of them did, and then died from the snake bites. And don't grumble as some of them did, and then were destroyed by the angel of death. These things happened to them as an example for us. They were written down to warn us who live at the end of the age. A stark reminder that there are things in the past that are good. There are things in the past that were mistakes that were made. And those written histories are things that we should carry with us so that we learn going forward how not to make those same mistakes again. And sometimes I'm afraid that we don't always do a good job of keeping the past close enough to remember we're in danger of repeating these things again.
Yeah. Oh man, so good. So good. Man, and you've got me already. I'm already signing up for this Character AI thing.
Yeah, I don't want it to let you down. Like I said, I did not try it, so I don't know to what extent you can have this conversation. But the idea is fascinating, and it's something that I'm definitely going to do myself. But
I mean, how
for the sake of the people, I guess we'll jump off and
all right.
And not force them to experience us sitting here looking up things. Oh, man.
That is so funny.
So I guess I'm going to leave us with the past is there to remind us of how to move going forward, but also we don't want to live in the past and believe that it was better than today because today's got a lot of joy to bring for its own. And with that, my brother, I'm out of here, and we'll see you next week. Once again, we want to thank all of our listeners for joining us today on 2 Feet Deep. If you would like to reach out with any questions or thoughts, please email us at 2feetdeeppodcast@gmail.com. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and we'll see you next time.